Thank you for joining our very first Career Flavours session, which is on the charitable sector and what you need to know to explore a career within that sector. We're joined by Michael this evening, who is a fundraiser for a homelessness charity. We've got a set of questions that we're going to ask Michael. Um, Michael has CF as well, so he'll be answering the questions from the perspective of someone with CF and imparting in that knowledge. So first of all, Michael, thanks for joining us on this session. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Um, I was wondering if you could start by just telling us a little bit about your role and how you got started working in the charitable sector.
Sure, of course. So my current role is head of high value fundraising at homelessness charity Centrepoint. I've been at Centrepoint for a year, but I've been a fundraiser for 13 years, which is a really long time to be in a career, longer than I've ever done anything before. My current role is looking after corporate donors, so businesses that want to donate to charity, wealthy individuals that want to donate to charity, and trusts and foundations, which are often wealthy families that have their own vehicles for giving donations. And my team brings in to Centrepoint about £11 million a year, so a big chunk of change at an organisation of £50 million. So we do our part. But looking back to when I got started in the sector was 2011, 2012. I was in a sales job I hated. It was inflexible and I was unable to kind of manage my health alongside career aspirations. It just wasn't something that I could see myself doing for a long time. And having fundraised for my whole life for the trust in different ways, whether that was charity football matches, running the London Marathon, skydiving, all for the trust. By doing those things and raising a load of money, I kind of had an affinity to want to get involved more deeply in the sector and continue that journey in fundraising, as it was something I'd done previously, felt like the right thing to do. And the way I got into the sector was by volunteering with an organisation called the Children's Society, which is a big national children's charity. I was just given an opportunity. I went to an event where they were talking about the sector run by the Institute of Fundraising, which is kind of the overseeing organisation that looks after the whole of the charity sector in the UK. And I just stood at the bar and spoke to as many people as I possibly could and said, how do I get a job doing what you do? It was all fundraising people. And someone said it wasn't easy to get in and you had to kind of find your way in by volunteering and meeting loads of people. And I was in the right place at the right time. Said, oh, I do have an internship coming up if that might interest you. And for someone who was in a paid job with a mortgage, planning a wedding, it was a pretty bold step that I had to come and explain to my then soon to be wife. Luckily, she's still my wife now. That I was about to take a volunteer position and quit my nicely paying sales job to go and be a volunteer for a month or so to try and get my foot in the door as the lowest rung within the sector was something that I felt was the right thing to do for me. A couple of weeks later, I was in the door, had an interview, and was just there to support one of the fundraising teams at this big national charity. And it was just about being there, being open, being willing to try and do anything, asking loads of questions, and just hoping that something came up. And within a couple of weeks into that month-long volunteering, I was lucky enough that they wanted me to stay, and they found an admin role within the same team for me to do. And despite earning whatever I was earning before, I decided to take that leap into the first rung of the charity sector ladder because that's what I was really passionate about going down a journey in. 13 years later, a number of different roles, a number of different organisations, I've kind of found my niche. It's a sector that I love. I'm really passionate about in what it can do for society. We don't always get what we need from government, dare I say it. money's been shrinking for the sector for such a long time. So to be able to fundraise and fill some of those gaps for people across our society that need it so much is an honour and a privilege that I love to be a part of. And that's kind of how it started, and that's kind of how it grew to my role as a head of team 13 years later.
Fantastic. So quite a journey. Was there anything, what was this, anything specific about the sector that appealed to you beyond the kind of experiences that you'd had fundraising for the CF Trust?
Yeah, I think having CF and having so many people do so many things for you across the world, across your community and the wider community, family, friends, the trust itself. I don't know whether it be Make-A-Wish Foundation that has supported me, the taxi drivers that took me to Paris a couple of times when I was really little, to Euro Disney in that journey when it was a big thing, which it still is. Charities had always imparted something into my life, and it was partly wanting to do something to repay that because I was willing and able to do it. But there's the other side, which is the classic cliche of why you get into the charity sector, which is about wanting to make a difference and have an impact in this world. I could have happily have continued to be a salesman, whether that be recruitment, lettings, property sales, whatever it was I was doing pre the sector, just didn't feel fulfilled. So it was about wanting to give back, and it was about showing some gratitude for all the things that had happened to me, people raising money for my family to support them during tough times when I was really ill as as a baby into toddler before I was diagnosed at 3.5. And I think all those little things that happen over the course of your life shape you and push you into a certain direction. And this was a direction that I found for me. I don't think I'm strong enough to be able to work on the front line with some of the people, some of the beneficiaries of the charities that I've worked at. I don't think I could work with youth homeless people that are there on the front line really struggling with no option and nowhere to turn. I don't think that working with young children who have faced abuse at Bernardo's was something I could do directly. But to work in those backup teams in fundraising and to raise the money that pay the salaries for those counsellors, for all the frontline workers at all those charities that I've been at, that was how I could make the difference. And that's what drove me and pushed me and gave me the desire to keep going through the rungs of the career ladder into the role I'm in now. It's just I think it was all those little incremental things throughout my childhood and young adult times that pushed me into subconsciously towards a sector. I think there was probably an air of inevitability about where I was going to end up, and I'm glad there was.
Yeah, and you've touched upon already a kind of wide variety of roles within national charities. You've mentioned the fundraising work that you do, the frontline staff, the fact that you the very beginning of your journey was kind of in an admin role. So just highlights, the wide variety of paths that people can take within
sure.
those industries.
Fundraising and charities are big businesses for the most part. If they're a medium to big charity, we've got HR departments, if that's the career choice you want to do. We've got IT, we've got finance, we've got volunteering teams, and within those there's all the different disciplines that happen. We've got admin, we've got support workers, we've got housing officers. The sector and the charity I'm in now is so big that there's so many different roles. But even if you just drill down into fundraising, there's maybe 10 or 15 different teams that someone could play a part in. That's marketing, that is digital marketing, it's online, again, wider of the fundraising team, it's social, it's brand, but just within fundraising specifically, you've got people that you might fundraise from, people that you want to leave a gift to your charity when you pass away, a legacy, a gift in your will. You've got my teams, which are those high value teams. You've got the teams that fundraise by marketing to people to try and get those £5-10 a month gifts, which is more sort of digital and direct marketing. Community, trying to get people like me when I did it to sort of jump out of a plane, run a marathon, and encourage them to fundraise. There's so many different avenues within the charity sector that people can go down, and there's so much on how it links. I know we're going to get onto sort of why that's great for someone with CF, but the charity sector just offers so many different opportunities that it's a really nice place to sort of learn your craft and move around within, and find the kind of direction you want to go in specifically.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you're kind of very your starting point within the charitable sector was that, I suppose, gamble that you took in taking an internship and leaving a paid role to do that. I was just wondering whether there were any specific kind of qualifications that you needed to have in order to be able to take up that internship opportunity.
So that is the good thing, and it's evolved a lot over time. The really good thing about the sector is that for a lot of roles, you just don't need qualifications at all. I have very few GCSEs. I was off unwell for most of that year 10, year 11. Left school at 16 after, well, I said that I tried to do some A levels, failed miserably, and after a few months realised education wasn't for me. I'd missed too much. I was too far behind, and that just was never going to be a route that I was going to take. I was never going to take. I was just never going to be an academic. That was not what I was set up to be. So A levels again, not a thing. I tried to train to be a chef, but my health again at that point was at its worst. And as many people know, the grueling hours of being a chef are not that flexible, and they do take its toll. That, coupled with the fact that I was really rubbish at cooking compared to my peers, culminated a decision to jump ship after a couple of years from that. We weren't a match made in heaven. I couldn't tell the difference in the wine, to be honest. Wine tastes like wine, and as a chef, you need to know the difference. And I absolutely couldn't smell the roses or the barreled oak or whatever it was. So I knew at that point that wasn't for me. So then I found the charity sector, and you get welcomed with open arms regardless of your qualifications. Specifically within fundraising, there's a big campaign about no degrees. Lots of sectors across society say you need this degree or you need that qualification. To be a fundraiser, you just need to be committed, driven, detail-oriented, people-focused in most roles. Being able to talk to people and build relationships is so central to what we do. And you don't need qualifications for so many of those things. It worked for me. In any advert that often goes out across the sector, there's no mention of qualifications for fundraisers. Different roles in the sector is slightly different. I think if you're going into a finance role, you're going to need some kind of finance. HR might be a CIPD qualification, but for fundraising specifically, it's really open to everybody and really accessible, regardless of your gender, your religious beliefs, your qualifications. It's really nice place and welcoming for everybody, regardless of whether you got CF or not. That really does help make it a good place to be.
Yeah. And so you touched upon like your health and how that's kind of you've had some challenges with that in different kind of stages of your life and with different kind of job roles that you've taken on. And so I was just wondering how it's been managing your CF alongside your fundraising role.
Yeah, sure. So I think, like most of us with CF, you have peaks and troughs with your health along the journey. I'm one of the lucky ones that has Kaftrio, that's had a really big, significant impact in my life and changed a lot of things. But pre 2020, I think, when we all got Kaftrio, or the majority of us could access Kaftrio, that wasn't the case. My health had been in decline for a really long time, and I was kind of ignoring it and just plugging away. But I was missing more and more time off work. The time off work was becoming harder. I was having more admissions, more home IVs. And I've got to say, the way that I was treated within the organisations at that time was just brilliant. It really was brilliant along a number of different ways. I remember at one point I was doing IVs in a meeting room in the office just because it wasn't a thing. I brought my little fridge in. It lived in the office, in the kitchen. It was everyone knew not to touch it. It was just for me. Took my little drugs out, went to a little meeting room, and did IVs in the office, and no one even bats an eyelid. So you could manage it quite comfortably, taking time off. There's policies in place, but there's often flexibility if you're sort of declaring the disability or the challenges that you have. It's a really open, understanding, and considerate sector for people with disabilities or otherwise. So for me, managing it wasn't the issue was me wanting to ignore the fact that these challenges were there and trying to ignore them for too long. I think if I'd have been open and honest about it a little bit earlier, it would have been even easier. But to have that flexibility and understanding from all the way through the organization was really great. If I take the example of when COVID happened, and just before lockdown, one of the directors came up to me and went, "I really don't want you getting on the train to go home from when you got to come into the office. We'll pay for your cabs back and forward." They took that upon themselves. I didn't have to go and say, "Oh, please, can I have some budget?" There's just an understanding for the most part. Not everyone is as wonderful as that man was, but for the most part, I think there's real care. We're in a care sector. We're in, for the most part, again, we're in a sector where you're looking after people or health conditions or children or animals. People are there because they care. And if you care about the job that you do, you're also going to care about the colleagues that you have, and you want to look after them and protect them and make sure everything's going well for them. And that comes through with the majority of people within the sector. Not all of them, I'd add, but for the most part, the sector is caring, considerate, and understanding. So managing the situation that you have, whatever that may be, appointments, hospitalization, just feeling rubbish, is great. I can call my boss on a whatever morning it is and say, "I know I've got some meetings with you today in the office. I just can't face coming in. I'm just too tired, or I've got a cough, or my stomach's not right," whatever it is. She'll just say, "Fine, let's do it on Teams." The luxury of online now means that that's more than possible. And I think that just kind of, those couple of examples demonstrate sort of the sector that operates in the way that it does. It's there to support us in the best way possible.
Yeah, and absolutely agree with you. With my own experience of kind of working in the charitable sector for over 10 years, there's a close parallel to what you've said in my own experiences of working in the sector. So
Right.
I absolutely think you're right on that in terms of the willingness to accommodate and want to be flexible in
Yeah,
order to enable colleagues and the people that you work with to kind of thrive within their roles.
absolutely.
So I suppose that leads nicely into another question, which is, have there been any kind of challenges within working within the charitable sector for you? And if so, what have they been?
Yeah, I think for me, it was around understanding my limitations when I wasn't as well as I am now, what I could do and what I was pushing myself to do, and going to places that I shouldn't have been going to because I was either too unwell or it was winter and the office had a load of colds and flu bugs going around, but I still pushed myself because I wanted to be like everybody else. And sometimes we push ourselves more than we should. I'd say generally people with CF are some of the most determined, stubborn people I've ever met. So you put yourself in circumstances and situations sometimes when you shouldn't and can't. So I think a lot of the challenges are around the limitations you should and sometimes don't put on yourself. So yeah, I'd say that's the biggest challenge. The sector itself opens doors, it gives you opportunity and allowance for that. So going back to that last question, it's just understanding what your limitations are, speaking and openly with your organization and your boss and your team and saying this is what I can and can't do. And that removes a lot of those challenges. So for someone with CF, this is an office-based job for the most part. So if you can manage a day or two in the office, or depending on the organization, working from home and sitting behind a desk for your days and your week, if you're well enough, the challenges get removed. I wouldn't say that there are that many big challenges to face in the sector. It is a mainly desk-based job. So from a getting tired, exhausted, unwell perspective, you can do most of it from home. So that does remove a lot of the barriers and remove a lot of the challenges.
Great. And do you have a kind of favorite part? Can you pick out one favorite thing about working in the charitable sector?
Yeah, but my favourite moment from the sector is going into an office of a wealthy property London businessman, asking him for £2.5 to £3 million, and him saying yes, and making a donation of that amount was probably the biggest highlight. But my favourite part now, as someone who leads a big team, is when someone in the team brings in those kind of gifts, whether it be 10 grand or £10 million, seeing people succeed and push themselves and knowing that in some part I've played a role in the success of that, knowing that that means that at some point they can have my job or they can push towards that. I think seeing people succeed and helping them grow and develop and be the fundraiser that they can be is always a highlight. I love that leadership part, and knowing that we can support people to achieve what they want to achieve, and again give them the flexibility to enjoy their lives alongside work. Work is a job. We go here mostly because we want to earn money and have a nice life ourselves, but the charity sector gives you that little bit, the icing on the cake. You get to do something for other people too, or animals, or whatever charity you decide to work for, the environment. But being able to do that is definitely my favorite part, for sure.
Absolutely, fantastic. And then so I imagine that at the end of a working day or at the end of a working week, that having done that, and it kind of puts you in a good place enables you to kind of really manage that work-life balance really quite well.
You can
So
switch off. You can switch off when you. I'd say again, if you've had an average week, it comes to 5, 6 o'clock on a Friday, you've done what you need to do, or when you get home on a weekday, you can switch off and you can come in the next day. It's not the sort of job that's going to take over your life unless you let it, or unless you have a nightmare boss, which even in the lovely charity sector, those people exist. But again, you're gonna be able to switch off, get on with your life, do your routines, go out, spend time with your family and friends without work being a constant nag. And that's important too. You need that work-life balance, especially when you've got CF.
yeah, absolutely. And so how would you describe a typical working week in the charitable sector? What would that kind of look like?
Yeah, we joked a little bit before when you asked me this question. I don't think it's worth me giving my example, because as a head of team, most of my week is spent in a meeting, which is particularly boring for, I'd say, 80% of the time. But as you get into the sector, those first 3-4 jobs in the career, a lot of it within my teams is about relationship building, speaking with your corporate partners about how they're going to raise money for the charity. How can we inspire people to partner with us and come on a journey where they can have some kind of impact to an area or an organization that they really feel passionate about too. If you take a wealthy individual that you're asking for, I don't know, let's say £50,000, they're not doing us a favor by giving us the money. We're doing them a favor by allowing them to have an impact. So as a fundraiser, your job is to engage people, whether it's corporates or individuals, to want to get on that journey. So you are speaking to the teams internally, our frontline service colleagues, and understanding our finance needs across the organisation. Where do we need to raise money? What are the key areas of focus that we need? How much is that going to cost? And then you look at the donors that you have or the prospects you have that you know you want to ask for some money from, and you work out what that looks like. How are we going to ask them for money? When are we going to do it? What is the area that we know ticks their boxes? If it's a children's charity, you know you've got children, you kind of halfway on the battle, but it's aligning someone's desire to give with something that they can have an impact in, and finding that match across all of your donors or your portfolio of potential funders is the majority of your week. It's a lot of planning, being on top of the detail, understanding what you need to do to hit your target, and then going out and getting it. So a few internal meetings, but as much time as possible in my team is going out and talking to people that can give us some money. And again, it's a really nice thing to be able to do, is to make people that have money part with that money, so that they can effectively and genuinely, at somewhere like Centrepoint, change people's lives for the better. And that will be your week, is planning how you can secure as much money for Centrepoint and make the biggest splash and impact you can. And that is what kind of gets everybody in my team out of bed in the morning, knowing that they're coming in to encourage people to part with their cash, because they know that it's the right thing for society, it's the right thing for them, and everybody ends up with a big old smile on their face, even if you do part ways with a load of cash.
Yeah, and enabling organizations like yourself to make a real difference in the lives of people that can benefit from that. So
to take someone who is street homeless, which is the extreme of homelessness, being on the streets, not knowing what to do, to get them off the streets, help them find a job, help them get closer to a job, get them into that job, help them stay there for a while, and then with a view to finding them a home. That journey can take a while, but to know that we've made that happen by the money we've raised is a phenomenal thing to be able to do, not just a fundraiser, but as a donor too. And we can report that and make people realize what impact they're having. So you can see that full cycle of genuinely changing someone's life. And it can be really quick or it can be really slow, but at some point we can make that happen.
yeah. So then, if for those on the call and for those that are going to be tuning in at a later date, what would be your best tips for anyone that's considering the charitable sector as a viable career path for them? What would be that kind of bit of best bits of advice that you'd impart on them about how to go about approaching the sector, or what they should be thinking about and doing?
Yeah, looking on charity board websites is a good place to start. Charityjob.co.uk is a nice place. But before you even get to being ready for a job in the sector, I'd say volunteering, working out the kind of sector, charity within the sector you want to work at, would be a really nice place to start. You can volunteer at events like the London Marathon, just go along and cheer the runners they go by. The Great North Run in the north is another example. You can the NSPCC, you could be someone who picks up the phone and a volunteer counsellor. Go in and see what kind of charities you are interested in, find their volunteering opportunities, and start getting your name involved with as many different charities as you have time for. Learn the sort of things that might be of interest to you, and then start speaking to people across the sector. Connect with them on LinkedIn, start asking some questions. It won't be long before you find someone you know in the charity sector. There's lots of us. And then start applying for jobs. Once you've got some volunteering experience under your belt, start looking at those coordinators, admin roles, internships. Most of them are paid across the sector now if you're looking for an internship, and just get your foot in the door at whatever level suits you and your experience. It might be entry level. You might have experience from outside the sector. Find your skills that match up to the sector. What are those transferable things that you have that you can take into a role within the charity sector, and start applying for jobs, start speaking to recruiters. There's loads of specialist fundraising recruiters and other charity recruiters, and that will really give you a little nudge. And you'll be able to pick their brains and ask them all the questions you have to start finding what role might be right for you. There's loads out there. And if all else fails, find me on Instagram or LinkedIn, drop me a message, and I'll happily talk to anyone that wants to get into the sector. It really is a nice place to work.
And I suppose you're kind of living and breathing proof that starting as a volunteer can lead to a well paid career within the sector, and that you are able to climb that career ladder.
It's absolutely possible for anyone, for sure. I'm not sure you get as well paid as I'd like to be, mate, but you're right. Yeah, we're doing okay. And yeah, that you're absolutely right. You can start at the most junior of entry level roles and work your way up to CEO. There's a number of CEOs who have started as volunteers at charities and just done all of the rungs in between to get to the top. And it's a good place to be and a good journey to go on. And you learn a lot, and you know that you're having an impact every single day. So it's a well worthwhile career to pick up.
Well, I really appreciate you answering those questions, Michael.